How's it going, guys? I'm Vivi and welcome back to some more Ratchet Clank. So this time I want to talk about the Plumber, and some of you actually wanted me to talk about this character, so let's dive straight into it. Okay, so at first we thought that the Plumber was this normal character with no importance. Let's go with that. In the beginning, he wanted something in exchange, especially when it comes to the classic games. Now, the more we met him throughout the series, the more it felt like he had some sort of importance. Like, who is this guy? Of course, we can all say he's the running joke of the series. But what if we think a bit deeper? What if there's more to this story? But before doing so, let's go over what he's done throughout the series, you know, to simply understand him a bit more. I'm gonna try and not ramble too much, and I'm gonna try and get straight to the point. I don't want the video to be too long for you guys. But anyways, with that being said, let's get started. So this guy first appeared in the classic Ratchet Clank on the PS2. First appearance, Planet Novalis. He was fixing a pipe. He finds this infobot with coordinates to a desert planet, more precisely known as Planet Aradia. And this infobot also had footage of Skid McMarx and his agent about to crash land on Planet Aradia. So we pay him 500 bolts for the infobot, because you know he wanted to escape Novalis because the planet was being attacked by the Blarg. So down he went the sewer pipe. The next meetup was on Batalia, and fun fact, in the missions menu in Ratchet Clank 1, he was called the Mechanic. So what was he doing there? He was fixing the turret on Fort Krontos. Ratchet had used that turret to get rid of the Blarg bombers. As a reward, the Plumber gave them a metal detector, one which his grandfather had invented, apparently. Next, going commando, in the Bogon Galaxy, he was unclogging a pipe on the Flying Lab located on planet Uranos. Apparently a Captain Quark action figure was stuck in the pipe. The duo, of course, bought it off him. And guess what? The Plumber said, "See you in another year or so." And of course, back then we all assumed that was a hint at Up Your Arsenal. And who would have thought the person they give the statue to would turn out to be the villain in a future game? I'm talking about Stuart Zergo, who used to be a huge fan of Quarks. So in going commando, we gave him the statue in exchange for the armor magnetizer. So yup, apparently it seems that the Plumber was right. See you in another year or so. A year later we got Up Your Arsenal. This time we meet the Plumber in the sewers of Aquatos. First thing he says, right on schedule. He said see you in a year in Going Commando. Up Your Arsenal released in 2004, Going Commando released in 2003, and both games released in November. So it was a hint after all. So what mission did he give us in the third game? To find the sewer crystals, in exchange for bolts. And why did he want sewer crystals? To apparently make a necklace for his wife. And that's not all. Before leaving, he said, "One of these days, I'll see you again." So at that point, I assumed that many fans believed that the Plumber was just a running joke, always hinting at other sequels. And what convinces us that he's a joke? Well, there's Deadlocked, Gladiator, if you guys live in Europe. He only got mentioned right at the ending of the credits. Due to the sump pump emergency in the Regalian Nebula, the Plumber was not able to appear in this game. He will return one of these days. See, right there, at that point I was like, okay, it's just for laughs. And once many people saw that, they jumped to the conclusion that, okay, the Plumber is simply this dude who's just hinting at other sequels. And that's actually the case. And then we got Tools of Destruction. Well, technically speaking, we got Size Matters on the PSP a few months before Tools, but let's talk about Tools first. So we meet him on planet Sargasso. Ratchet and Clank, they were looking for the Dimensionator. And they meet the Plumber again. And the most funny phrase coming out of that character's mouth is, "I couldn't recognize you in high def." That is funny. What was he up to this time? He apparently had built this high-speed interplanetary transportation gizmo. For what reason? To escape, or he was probably bored. A triple 3/4 centicubic hexagonal washer, which they used to return home after facing Tachyon. The Dimensionator, once it was broken, that piece was used to get themselves back home. And who was the one to point out that the piece was necessary to get back home? Clank. Just keep that in mind. It's as if the Plumber knew that Clank would get them out of that mess. So at that point I'm wondering, is there more to this character? Is there more of him that we don't know about? Now, later on he tells them that the device they're looking for does not exist. The device which would wipe the Kragmites out of existence. And then he said, "I've been everywhere in the universe and beyond." Okay, so that too made me wonder, okay, this character is probably hiding something. There's something about his background. Although he tells us the object doesn't exist, he says that don't mean what you're looking for ain't there. He's always there, popping out of nowhere at the right times, giving us hints. Now isn't he a special one? Next, a crack in time. Now this one is the one which I find the most interesting. The plumber ends up in Clank's subconscious, in which Orvis had put a digital version of himself, to teach Clank to become the senior caretaker of the clock. The plumber thought it was in Quark's mind, due to the emptiness. And then he proceeds by saying, I wouldn't risk any more than 6 minutes. Clank didn't know what he meant at that time, but later on he knew he was talking about the great clock. That 6 minutes of going back in time saved Ratchet. It's like he sees the future, he knows what's gonna happen, he tells this character to do this and that to avoid that. Weird, right? Again, he appears in comic issue number 6. He saved Tolwyn, Ratchet, and Vorn from drowning in the aqueduct. All for one. Ratchet, Clank, Quark, Nefarious, their moving platform was stuck. They were stranded in the icy tundra. The plumber had explained, apparently he was sent to replace someone else. Okay, at this point we're all like, okay, this guy is probably lying. The plumber is the plumber, always there to save the day and give a bunch of tips and tricks. Funny thing is, Ratchet asked him for any mystical advice to stop Nevo. He said, I don't have that kind of advice, good luck, with a wink. If he knows so much, he knew that Nevo wasn't the villain they were looking for. That's why he didn't have any sort of advice. Full frontal assault. Zurgo disguised himself as the plumber. How did Ratchet find out about that? Well, the true plumber had told him, hey, I've been on Marcasia the whole day. So then the characters realized, okay, something's up. Next, before the Nexus, Ratchet was going after Vendra and Nefton. They had kidnapped Fleabart, Snuttlebeast, and what the plumber did, he provided assistance. Into the Nexus, he was fixing toilets on the Nebulok 7 prison ship. Accidentally, he had locked himself in a vault which landed on planet Thram. Ratchet unlocked that vault and the plumber made them the Rhino 7, in exchange for holoplans of course. Ratchet and Clank's size matters. Emperor Otto wanted to build a bunch of Ratchets. Ratchet was being studied at the medical outpost Omega. They were trying to extract his DNA. During that process, Ratchet was in this weird realm. And guess what? The plumber was simply floating around. Now in that weird realm, there were a bunch of memories of old events. We can say Ratchet simply remembered the plumber. Up next, Secret Agent Clank. Okay, now I know what some of you are thinking right now. Is Size Matters and Secret Agent Clank canon or not? Let's not get into that right now, but the point is, the plumber was fixing the prison's cold water. He had told Ratchet to lend him a hand. What happened is something went loose and it angered the nearby prisoners. Now this time the plumber unintentionally caused trouble for Ratchet. Okay, is the plumber a good guy or a bad guy? The thing is, Secret Agent Clank, I think, is like a game of an episode of Secret Agent Clank. In Tools of Destruction, a game which was released after Secret Agent Clank by the way, you could unlock Convict Ratchet, and that code was unlocked in Secret Agent Clank. And once you got that skin, which was part of the cheat code, it said, congratulations Secret Agent Clank fan. Now the question is, was the voice talking to Ratchet or the player? Now the obvious answer is, of course it's talking to the player. If you had bought a Secret Agent Clank, then they're talking to you. Or did the voice refer to Ratchet as in, hey, you're a Secret Agent Clank fan, congratulations, you unlocked a costume which was part of one of the episodes. I know guys, this sounds funny, but what I'm trying to say is, I believe that Secret Agent Clank was a game based on an episode. Like, if you take the time to analyze the game, you feel as if you're playing an episode. It's probably just me, but anyways. It'd be pretty cool to discuss Secret Agent Clank in the future, don't you think? Anyways, let's get back to the real point of the video. Like I said in the beginning, let's dive a bit deeper into this whole plumber situation. Sure, he's an ongoing joke in the series, always appearing out of nowhere, hinting. I mean, look at the reimagining, see you in the next reboot. Look at Ratchet's face. What we realize overall is that in the classic games, he always wanted something in return. But to suddenly appear and not want anything in return, in the future saga especially, to me it feels like he came into contact with someone. Someone who at least knew Ratchet or Clank. Whoever this person was, or being, he or she wanted the duo to remain safe. It's as if this mysterious character the plumber met could see into the future. Again, didn't he say see you in a year or so, right on schedule, see you one of these days? It's as if someone told him what's going to happen. to avoid any problems that would put the duo into trouble, which could risk the fate of the galaxy. The Plumber has apparently been everywhere in the universe and beyond. Could he have come into contact with the Zoni, just like Captain Darkwater? To make it sound a bit funny, perhaps the Zoni were, I don't know, looking for a plumber? Orvis perhaps saw potential in the Plumber. Perhaps he had told him to keep an eye on Clank, specifically. And of course, knowing the Plumber, if we go with the classic games, he wanted something in return, some sort of pay. Maybe they paid him in bolts, who knows? Perhaps Orvis had told him Ratchet and Clank are always going to pay you in return. Since you know he can see into the future, he's a Zoni. And yes, with time he realized that Ratchet and Clank are just like friends. Two people always trying to save the galaxy. So he no longer wanted anything in exchange. Well, except for the Rhino 7, alright? This guy, he always knew he was going to meet them again and again. How is that even possible? Sure, it could have been a rough guess. That's an easy idea to go with. And of course, if we put aside the realistic, you know, the Plumber being a joke, think of this. The Zoni control space and time. They're from a different dimension. The word beyond from the Plumber could perhaps explain this. He's seen a lot more, and what he's seen, for example, could be the dimension of the Zoni. The thing is, how do we know that the Zoni came to Ratchet's dimension in the past? The Fongoids, they had entrusted them with the power to time travel, they messed up. They met Captain Darkwater, they gave him the Fulcrum Star, so you know they could communicate. And then eventually perhaps they had met the Plumber. As a joke, maybe they wanted the Plumber, who knows? Sure, maybe they needed someone to fix their toilet, but perhaps maybe Orvis saw some potential in him. Someone who would keep an eye on Clank. A robot which Orvis created and existed in Ratchet's dimension. So for years, the Plumber has been keeping an eye on Clank. Clank is my first guess. He was created on Quartu. Orvis even put a digital version of himself in Clank's memory banks, so he would be able to eventually train and become the senior caretaker of the Great Clock. What was the Plumber in his subconscious? Perhaps Orvis had put him in there. Sure, we're talking about Clank's memory banks and all that, but the Plumber is talking, just like the digital version of Orvis. All we had in his memory banks were objects. To have another character speak, I'm wondering, did Orvis put a digital version of the Plumber in Clank intentionally? If the Zoni control space and time and are able to maintain it, surely they can see into the future. They knew that Azimuth was going to use the Great Clock to try and save the Lombaxes. Since these creatures can see into the future, Orvis perhaps had put Plumber in Clank's subconscious, you know, to teach him about the Great Clock, about the whole 6 minutes. Okay, why didn't the Zoni just travel to Ratchet's dimension and talk to Clank? The thing is, they're not meant to live in Ratchet's dimension, they were wearing a bunch of armors. They do have a weakness: sonic weaponry. In a way, the Zoni also care about Ratchet. I mean, look, Clank saved him from Azimuth's laser. Thing is, without Ratchet, the galaxy would have been doomed. So what I think right now is the following. The Plumber this whole time was the eyes of the Zoni. The Zoni didn't want to risk losing their species. They needed creatures to take care of space and time. So why not just trust someone in Ratchet's galaxy to keep an eye on Clank and Ratchet, pretty much. And that person, guys, was maybe the Plumber. I mean, come on, he always popped up out of nowhere at the right moments. He knew he was gonna meet the duo again. It's like someone told him, hey, you're gonna meet these two characters again in a year or so. So if all of this is true, perhaps he was communicating with the Zoni through perhaps the Fulcrum Star. Well, to be a bit more precise, you need the Obsidian Eye to contact the Zoni, something which Darkwater had created, but who knows, maybe the Fulcrum Star has other functions as well, one which doesn't require the Obsidian Eye. Another thing I'd like to go over, the word beyond mentioned by the Plumber, could that have meant the Lombax dimension as well? I'm not too sure about that one. If the Plumber did travel there, I think he would have mentioned it, unless it was meant to be kept a secret. Then again, the Dimensionator was relocated on planet Jacindu. We assume it was Max Apogee who did so. Question is, if Max and Angela Cross went to the Lombax dimension, who hid the Dimensionator after? How did Ratchet and Clank find the Dimensionator on planet Jacindu if it was used? I mean, clearly they didn't take it with them. Could the Plumber have been involved? Someone who knew so much about Ratchet and Clank. Who knows, maybe Angela Cross could have told the Plumber not to say anything. Because why? The galaxy needs a hero, and that hero is Ratchet. Who would have been the one to stop Tachyon? Ratchet. If all this theory is true, this brings me to Kaden. The smuggler had explained, after the attack on planet Fastoon, someone who looked like Ratchet crash-landed and gave a gyrocycle to the smuggler in exchange for a ship. But that we don't know, this is all just pure speculation. So if Kaden did escape, this could mean he's alive, and I did talk about this possibility in another video. Could Kaden have been guiding the plumber this whole time? Could he have befriended this character? Here's a theory someone had come up with a while ago. User Shonen Jump Boy shared the following. However, do you know what's really weird, VTNVIVI? The sewer guy. The one that's always working on the sewers. And if you really think about it, he's always around to bail or help Ratchet and Clank out whenever they need help the most. He's appeared in almost every game, helping, giving hints on how Ratchet should defeat his enemies. He's probably a friend of Kaden, sent to watch over his son while he's in hiding. I mean, he's right. It's weird to always have the plumber show up when he's needed. Always being there, giving hints, tips. So weird. How many times has he said, see you in the next amount of years or so? This theory of Kaden having met the plumber sounds very interesting, but it still leaves one big question. Why was Ratchet's father hiding this whole time? Sure, Ratchet is strong enough to live on his own and save the galaxy, but to have a father who remained in the shadows, why do that to your own son? But, the plumber predicting the future, knowing that he's going to see Ratchet and Clank again? How did Kaden predict that? I'd lean more towards the idea of the Zoni in this case. But wait! What if Kaden dressed up as the plumber? Didn't Quark dress up as Fizzwidget? Yes, but nah. It sounds way too cliche and weird to think that his father has been the plumber all these years. So all I can think of right now, if this whole theory of Kaden is true, is that he wanted to remain alone, so that he wouldn't risk both lives, him and his son. Cause look, what if Tachyon had found Kaden and Ratchet? He would have killed them both. If they're kept separate, one's gonna remain alive, at least. I think that's what Kaden had in mind. I think that could be one reason why he's been hiding in the shadows, and probably thought, hey, if I die, at least my son will be the galaxy's hero, or something like that. But anyways guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you watched the whole thing, as usual, you are awesome. So leave your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think of the plumber? Has he met Kaden? Has he contacted the Zoni before? Leave everything in the comment section below. And as always, I've been Vivi, and thank you for watching.